Black Myth Wukong's shameless lack of diversity is attracting the wrong type of fans. That's a beautiful title, isn't it? It really is an excellent little title, and it goes on to be just about as stupid as you probably expect it to be, which is always good for a little bit of mockery, but this also is a lovely guidebook to the kind of absolute brash self-confidence that our side eventually needs to start adopting as well. This kind of absolute belief that anything and everything, no matter how diametrically opposed to you it might be, is somehow just yours to claim. It is something given to progressivism, of course, largely due to its position as the dominant cultural force, where everything either had to kowtow to it, or be cancelled and yeeted out from production, or simply just removed from professional life. Or it was actually purposefully designed towards progressives, in the hopes of finding that mythical wider audience that never actually materialized. But as the pendulum now begins to swing, this is something again that our side will need to start doing. To look at a thing, even if it is not necessarily your kind of thing, and take it over, in essence. But that's a wider topic. We shouldn't be carrying hate into what should be a safe space for everyone, the article continues. Now, we know by this point that the interesting part about it is, of course, that gaming used to be a safe space for everyone. Nobody was excluded from gaming whatsoever. The only thing that could possibly stop you from entering into it was, well, your pocketbook, depending on if you could get a hold of a console or a PC, and or if you were literally incapable of interacting with it, like a paraplegic or a quadruple amputee or something, and even then we figured out ways for those people to engage in gaming as well. It was the broadest, most accepting hobby that probably there has ever been. And then the progressives got a hold of it. And suddenly, it was not quite as acceptive anymore. Suddenly, you needed to have the correct politics. Suddenly, you needed to think the right kind of way. Suddenly, you were endangering people if you played a video game the way you wanted to. Suddenly, you were the problem if you talked too much. Until now we've finally arrived at the point where if you're playing an online multiplayer game, you know that the only way to really be sure to avoid getting reported for random nonsense is to never speak. Is to never type in chat, never to do or say anything, because it could and probably will be perceived as some sort of a bannable offense and or microaggression. And Black Myth Wukong, well, it's a lovely little escape from that. Black Myth Wukong just launched to a stellar reception, garnering a whopping 2 million players within a day. But things aren't all sunshine and rainbows. Actually, I think that's the definition of all sunshine and rainbows, really. Shortly before release, developer Game Science came under fire for its streaming guidelines. I don't think it came under fire for them, no. I think they were roundly applauded for them. That reportedly prohibited creators from talking about politics and feminist propaganda. The studio also faced criticism after alleged sexist comments surfaced, suggesting Black Myth Wukong needed no female players, alongside an apparent slew of grotesque, orderly, genitalia-focused remarks. Yes. See, this is the thing. You may attempt to claim Black Myth Wukong, and efforts are currently being made in that direction, but it is developed by a Chinese company. The Chinese don't like progressivism very much. In fact, they are starkly opposed to it. They view it as, best case scenario, a weapon to weaken the West, and something to be avoided at all cost in their own country, as they do recognize a cancer of their own partial making. Socialism, that is. Somewhat unsurprisingly, this led to hordes of self-proclaimed anti-woke fans coming out of the woodwork to celebrate Wukong's lack of diversity. All it takes is a brief glimpse at the comment section on social media to see this kind of sentiment is rife. The most telling thing of all is how screenwriter journalists who criticized Wukong's lack of inclusion was bullied off the internet by rabid commenters. No one should ever face hate for doing their job. Well, on that note, so the person who was bullied off the internet wasn't bullied off the internet for their opinion on Black Myth Wukong. Largely they were bullied off the internet because, they used to work for a marketing agency. They were a professional marketing PR person who was then hired to make reviews of a game that they had previously been attacking. Sus. Very sus. Not to mention, of course, the whole backstory of this, leading back to supposedly Sweet Baby Inc., one of the diversity, equity, and inclusion companies, threatening the developers behind Black Myth Wukong by trying to cancel them if they didn't pay them to consult on their game. Now, I myself have repeatedly said that I do find this a little bit suspicious, but the very fact that this is even a plausible thing indicates to you just how ridiculous things have gotten. On August 21st, Puberty's Instagram page shared news of Wukong's breaking Steam single-player record, and the comments are full of unsavory replies from fans delighted the game isn't inclusive. Because it's not gay or woke, a top comment read, which at the time of writing has nearly 4,000 likes. So proud of this game that doesn't support any gender or sexual orientations, unlike the other games nowadays, now the user said. The common sentiment is that liberals are in tears, and it sounds like right-wing gamers couldn't be happier. Correct. Your suffering is basically our fuel at this point. It doesn't stop there. On August 20th, creator Ryan Kinnell shared a YouTube video called "Woke Game Journalist Triggered" of Black Myth Wukong. The comments paint a similar picture, and it won't take long to find dozens of parallel examples. "I'm getting this game just because it doesn't have diversity." One user replied, while another wrote, "Journalists would give it a 10 out of 10 if it were a black chick with dong instead." To be fair, that is kind of clever, actually. I gave Wukong 8 out of 10 in my review, and I'll stand by it. Gameplay-wise, Wukong is fantastic, but after 40 plus hours, I've yet to encounter a single female character, aside from one inanimate mini-boss called the Mother of Stone, and no one can convince me that's a good thing. So, this right here is one of the things as well. You gave the game an 8 out of 10. Okay, fair enough. But you then give yourself a little bit away, so you've only encountered one female character, the Mother of Stone. The Mother of Stone can be found about, halfway through Chapter 2, I think. And you actually encounter a female character in Chapter 3, about, again, halfway or so through, atop the giant turtle. Yet he's played the game for 40 plus hours. That took me, I think, 3 streams to get to, which each stream being 45 hours, so tops it took me 15 hours to get to the female character in the game. This game's journalist, who gave the game an 8 out of 10, has not played, he's played about 30% of the game, tops. He apparently got stuck for 40 plus hours before he got halfway through Chapter 3. First and foremost, have you truly done your job to review the game at that point? Secondly, this is why games journalists are not gamers. Good God, man. Journey to the West, story Black Myth Wukong is based on, has plenty of female characters, and there were even a city populated by women, like Zelda's Guado Town. None of this appears in Black Myth Wukong. Again, it's actually a lie. There are female characters in Black Myth Wukong. This guy was simply too shit to get to it. That's kind of beautiful, isn't it? Where's the diversity? It's behind this skill wall. Oh, well, shit. He gives up and goes home. Diversity isn't a bad thing, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. Half the people on the planet are women. Around 10% of humans identify as LGBT+, according to a 2021 survey. We live in a diverse world, and there's no escaping it. Black Myth Wukong appears to contradict this statement, as it reached a massive audience specifically by rejecting this diverse world of ours. Having a diverse cast of characters makes the game more believable. It helps female and minority players feel represented. Diversity helps break down stereotypes like the utterly untrue notion that women don't enjoy games. It facilitates richer narratives and fosters more creative storytelling, blah 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 blah. And purely from a business perspective, diverse games appeal to more players. Yet further blah 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 blah. When a developer elects to only feature straight male characters, it sends messages that diversity isn't important, or worse, that it is a bad thing. Correct. This rallies toxic community members who share the same opinion, encouraging passionate gamers to go for each other's throats. Not for each other's throat, no, for yours. As all of this is the standard trotted out line that we hear every time this happens. Oh, diversity will increase sales. The wider audience, women, gays, they'll flock to your game. Your game will be better if it's diverse, says Sweet Baby Inc. And yet, looking at Dustborn, contra Black Myth Wukong, looking at Concord, contra Black Myth Wukong, you have been proven wrong on this statement again and again and again for the last 10 odd years. It is time now for the woke, and they are beginning to realize it already, to come to the final realization that they are not merely unpopular, because they were never particularly popular, but they had the correct moral beating stick to shame people into line. Now you have become the bully. You are recognized simply as the bully. Your entire presence is that of something bad. You have become inherently negative. Your opposition to a thing will boost that thing's sales. There is nothing to be gained from being diverse anymore, and there is everything, the world, 2 million sales to be gained from being in opposition to you. We are on the cusp of a beautiful era of the reverse of the wider audience, the narrow audience of 2 million people who managed to get further than less than halfway through the game in 40 plus hours. And God, I am very, very happy to see it. And that's also why, again, we need to start doing this. This is an entire article going, oh, it's very unfortunate that it isn't diverse. It would be so much better if it was diverse. Simply stating it, saying it with authority, as if merely opening one's mouth and passing air over one's vocal cords will make it true, or desperately hammering away at a keyboard. In this case, I do suppose. And this does have power. This was what was able to set the narrative. 1,000 games journalists reeing in concerted coordination created the perception that Gamergate was a harassment movement, that people on the internet, regular gamers, were just racists. It managed to convince so many people that their own opinions were wrong that it took us 10 years to finally look around and go, really? You just bullshitted me into this for a decade? Yes. It's a confidence bluff on a rather remarkable scale. And it is one that we will need to embrace to yet further hasten the collapse of progressivism. And Black Myth Wukong, for all of the potential downside that this game's success can have, and don't get me wrong, there are quite a few, as even now I guarantee you the CCP is looking at this and thinking, hold on, we could become the dominant cultural force on the world? In the West and on the planet, merely by making video games that are what we used to have 20 years ago, merely by making a straight up cool slappy Souls-like, we can become a cultural force. We can introduce the West to our culture, our stories. Well, shit. This has uses. Yes, it does. But for now, at least, I will happily crow over the demise of the progressives and worry about the Chinese later. Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.